That was backwards, but good morning and welcome. The Economic Development Infrastructure meeting for today starts at 9:35. We will get started with a roll call.
Johnson.
Here.
Whiteford.
I'm here.
Markham.
Here.
Miller is absent with notice. Ramick.
Present.
Long is absent with notice. Spiz.
Present.
Smith Charles.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Excellent. Let us stand for the pledge. Commissioner Rahman, would you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda is approval of the minutes. I'll take a motion to approve those minutes. They do include closed session.
I'll move.
Commissioner Markham moves and Commissioner Rahman supports. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and prompt the vote.
I have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. That motion carried and takes us to item number 5 on the agenda, which is approval.
I'll move the agenda.
Moved by Whiteford, supported by Markham. Discussion? Go ahead and prompt the vote.
Malcolm?
Sweet sound.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's not,
It's probably selected.
not awake.
You have 6 yeas, 0 nays.
Great, motion carried, thank you. Takes us to item 6 on the agenda, which is public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to speak before the committee, 3 minutes max, related to items on the agenda only. Do I have anyone from the public who'd like to address this committee? Giving you a chance in case you're hesitant. Anyone? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and close public comment. Item 7 is communications, which are none. Item 8 is consent agenda, which I'll take a motion to
So moved.
approve. Supported by Commissioner Rahman. Okay, so these are our fiscal year 2023 appropriations for the city of Sylvan Lake, the Charter Township of Springfield, the Charter Township of Oxford, the city of Northville, and the Charter Township of Waterford. Any further discussion? Seeing none, let's prompt the vote.
Yeah, 6 yeas and 0 nays.
6 yeas, 0 nays, that motion carried. Excellent, that takes us to item 9, which is our regular agenda. And I'll entertain a motion to open 9A, Economic Development, Aviation and Transportation Airport Land Lease Addendum, Midfield Management LLC. Moved by Spiz, supported by Markham. And we have Ms. Bush here today. Welcome. And the microphone is yours.
Thank you, I appreciate that, Madam Chair, and good morning, everyone. This morning, we have an airport land lease addendum with Midfield Management. This addendum will extend the term of the lease to 30 years with an additional option to extend an additional 20 years at the end of that term if required for lending purposes. It also reprioritizes some of the construction projects that are incorporated within the land lease, and the airport committee has reviewed that, as have I, and approved it, and so we're ready to move forward with the addendum.
Excellent, thank you. I don't see any speakers, any questions? Seeing none, I believe we can go ahead and prompt the vote.
have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
That motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bush.
You're welcome.
Next is item 9B, Water Resource Commissioner appropriating additional American Rescue Plan Act local fiscal recovery funds and authorizing the release of grant funding for the local government critical infrastructure planning grant program. Take a motion to open that. Moved by Johnson, supported by Spiz. And feels like we were together not that long ago.
Yes.
But if you wouldn't mind just reintroducing yourself.
Sure.
And you're welcome to get started.
Thank you. My name is Brian Coburn. I'm a manager with WRC. Long time no see. With me today is Amy Plouffe. She's our chief engineer in charge of the water systems.
Thank you.
The item before you today is, it's been around for a little while. We started in 2021 with the board approving the local government critical infrastructure grants for the CVTs to be able to take advantage of some of the ARPA funds from the county. There was 21 communities that were initially awarded, and then there was another 15, I think, that were awarded later. There's a resolution in 2021 to create the grant and put $2.4 million into it. Then there was another resolution to actually appropriate the funds. However, Royal Oak Township, while on the list, was not in the list of appropriations. So we're coming back at this point to seek the appropriation of the $450,000 that was originally discussed by that committee that was responsible for recommending those grants. We're prepared now to go forward to use those funds. And the funds will be used to administer the lead service line replacement program in the township of Royal Oak. We received $3 million in grants from the state to do the actual construction. However, the administrative and engineering costs are not covered by the grant. And Royal Oak Township, being overburdened as they are, sought the funds from the Board of Commissioners to be able to do the work on the administrative and engineering parts of it, to be able to do the construction later. So today we're looking for that appropriation of the $450,000 that was discussed in 2021.
Thank you, Brian. Any questions from commissioners? Mr. Spiz, I see your hand now.
No, thank you. Thank you for coming in. Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in full support of this. This was part of the original agreements that we as the Board of Commissioners came to with the $10 million for the Northeast part, and then the infrastructure development grants we gave out for engineering planning. So fully on board with this.
Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Brian, again, for coming in. I guess the only question I have is there anything additional that you foresee between now and whenever this project gets completed that may be additional funding or anything else that may be needed aside from what we've, appropriated here?
To do all the work we want to do in Royal Oak Township on the water side, we need about $13 million.
Get your check.
So I guess what are we anticipating? So what is this going to do in the grand scheme of $13 million?
Sure. So the grant, or maybe if you want to explain that, sure.
Sure, so the funding that we receive for service line replacement, so that's the service line that goes from the water main in the street into the customers' homes. Those are made of lead in Royal Oak in some locations. So what this will do is it allows us, that we have funding to replace the service line itself, but we don't have the funding to do all the paperwork and the administrative work that goes with getting that funding. As you can imagine, there's a lot of rules, as there should be with this kind of funding, so it kind of helps us move that forward so that we can get those service lines replaced and then continue to build that water system the way it should be operated for these customers.
So are we anticipating that we're gonna have to keep going back to the drawing board for the remainder of those funds to eventually get to where we need to be?
Well, because they're significantly overburdened, they do get principal forgiveness through the SRF program with the state. But again, there's those administrative and engineering costs. So I think we've been here a couple times to talk about Royal Oak Township, and I'm sure we'll be back again to talk about Royal Oak Township as we continue to seek grants and find out what the unpaid costs are associated with us receiving the grant.
Commissioner Spiz?
Yes, thank you. Just to add to what Commissioner Rahman said or asked. The current topic is just Royal Oak Township, but there's bigger projects around the entire county. I know we just did something for the city of Pontiac. There's lead service lines all over the county that I know the Water Resource Commission is trying to find ways to fund and move forward with replacing. So as grants come available, I'm assuming you'll be in front of us again to try to find ways to make sure we can replace all those. I don't know if you have an estimate on the overall. You said 13 million for Royal Oak Township, but it's a much bigger number for the entire county. I don't remember what the number was.
Pontiac's probably 60 to 80 million,
Wow. Just on the water side.
Yep.
round.
Inflation too. About a year ago, you were saying like 44 million in Pontiac, and it's just
unfortunately, we're seeing construction prices come in almost double what our estimates are.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Still in business.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's the business to get into.
Any other comments from commissioners? All right, good discussion there. Let's go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you, that
Thank you.
motion carried. Thank you. All right, that takes us to item C, Water Resources Commissioner Transfer, Evergreen Farmington Sewage Disposal System to Evergreen Farmington Sanitary Drainage District. I'll take a motion to recommend and move to finance. Thank
I'll
you.
move it.
Mr. Wiper, supported by Mr. Johnson. And looks like we have Carrie and Steve. Thank you, and the floor is yours.
Good morning, Steve Korth, Chief Manager with the Water Resources Office. This is Carrie Cox, she's a Special Project Manager. And Carrie's gonna give us a brief overview of this transfer of assets and liabilities from the Evergreen Farmington Sewage Disposal System, which is the current existing system, to the Evergreen Farmington Sanitary Drain.
Great, thanks, Steve. The Evergreen Farmington Sewage Disposal System was originally formed in 1954 under that Public Act 342 of 1939. And that allowed all counties in Michigan to do water, sewer, or sewage disposal systems for the benefit of their region. So in 2020, several of the communities that were tributary to the Evergreen Farmington Sewage Disposal System petitioned our office to become a Chapter 20 drain. So this is really good for Oakland County because it removes some of the liability associated with the operation and maintenance of this system off the county proper and onto the drainage district as a whole. And this also will result in the transfer of these funds, which is why we're here today, from the official County 342 to the new Chapter 20 drain. And again, this was a petition from the customer communities, and they've all signed a 471 agreement as part of that to assure that that happens because there's over $100 million project that has to be constructed to continue operating as we are today.
I can add one point of clarification. The Act 342 was with Oakland County, but the designated agent was the Water Resources Commissioner. So we've been operating that system for all these years.
Right.
Now we've just transferred it to under the Michigan Drain Code.
Okay. Any questions from commissioners? Contained in here are, you said there were member communities who made the request. Are those names in here? I might have overlooked them.
Just breakdown by percentage.
Okay. Excellent. Well, that's all we have. Let's go, Commissioner Markham?
I just want to clarify, it's basically a paperwork thing to move the money, to create the more modern structure of how to manage the drain, all the other drains around here.
I think it's good characterization. This is housekeeping for the transfer from the Act 42 to the Act 40, which is the Michigan Drain Code, which we've been doing for the past 2 years. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. We can go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you. Motion carried for item C. Thank you. Next, we have item D, Facilities Planning and Engineering Fiscal Year 2023 Parking Lot Paving Project. We have Jason Warner here, and it looks like Ed is with him as well. So, gentlemen, welcome.
Good morning. Good morning.
And tell us what you got for us regarding, motion to open that. Moved by Whitebird, supported by Rahman. Yes, now, the floor is
thank you.
yours. Thank you.
This morning, we have the 2023 paving projects out of the capital improvement plan. Total cost is $1,925,273. And this plan is to repave a portion of the Board of Commissioners parking lot, the EOB Conference Center parking lot, and the road outside of the Resource and Crisis Center and the North Oakland Health Center. So the parking lot here and the EUB, you may recall, we planned on doing those last year. We ran into some constraints with our vendor and some resources. So we've repackaged that and included it with the road paving that was already planned here. And in addition to that, we've added plans to add some EV infrastructure for vehicle chargers.
You knew we were gonna ask about that.
When it didn't, I was going to, so.
And I'll add one thing if I can. Just wanted you to be aware that we're playing with some timing, right? We're in our due diligence period for the downtown Pontiac deal. And, you know, we're looking at if that does go through, who we might be moving down there. One possibility would be folks from the executive office building. So we are seeking approval for doing all this paving, but just wanted you to be aware that if the deal goes through, there's a possibility that we may pull the EOB paving out of the bid, right?
Yes, hopefully, thank you. That was good.
Because, and again, please, I'm stressing the word possibilities, cause these are just plans, but you know, if we do move the folks from the EOB downtown and we vacate that building, that might be one of the buildings that we may want to sell. And if so, do we wanna put $500,000 into paving over there if we're just gonna sell it? So not sure what we're gonna do, but just wanted you to be aware that we're thinking about those things as we're going through this process.
Thank you, that's important. Mr. Spiz, we'll start with you.
Can you please help me understand and describe exactly what they're going to be doing for the 1.9? Are we milling, are we just overlay, are we sealing, what exactly are they doing?
The road and the parking lot at the executive office building are total removal and replacement. The lot out here, the Board of Commissioners lot, is removing the middle section where we have the drainage issues, heavy rains, the water ponds up there, and that will be, the center will be totally removed, new base, and then permeable pavement added there, and then the rest of the work is some concrete and flat work to improve accessibility, to make them ADA compliant, right? And then, like I said, the EV infrastructure. So we've done electrical studies on both these buildings. We will add the chargers that we can with the available electricity, but we're also prepping for the future for additional EV once our infrastructure can support additional charging units.
Okay, follow up. Gwen's probably gonna ask something similar. Where would you put the EV charging stations? In the center section that you're tearing out anyway here and in the EOB, or where, I mean, what's a rough idea? They give me the outside of the parking lot, center of the parking lot?
So I can tell you for this lot here, so the accessible parking is in the center core. We're planning on moving it up kind of where the reserve parking is here. And then the EV stations will be tacked on to the end. So our goal is to have the accessible parking and the EV parking kind of next to each other, and that will allow us to add EV charging capabilities to accessible parking spaces as well.
Got it, okay.
So this, at the EOB, same situation, it'd be more towards the front of the parking lot there.
We are working on a master plan for all of our parking lots to try to understand where the EV parking should go. That will help us determine what type of infrastructure we actually need, which we're, you know, right now we're a little like, we need more power coming in, right? So we're working on that. But in most cases, it is gonna be, like Jason said, the spots closer to the building because it's much easier, less disruptive, more cost effective to have them close to the building so we can get our power out there.
Sure.
And, you know, if people are driving EVs, you know, give them a little bit of incentive, right?
I don't know about that part, but I understand your rationale.
Get the park closer to the building, right?
We'll go to Commissioner Markham, followed by Commissioner Johnson.
Okay, to follow on with the EV charging, so what about over at the health building and the other places that are part of this plan, are you planning on putting EV over there as well as part of this?
We will, yeah. So when we replace parking lots, we're planning on automatically including the EVs. That's why we did it here. South Health parking lot is scheduled for 25. So EV will go in there. The North Oakland Health Center as
you're doing this?
as we continue, but we're also working with the Sustainability Office on some grant funding too. And if we get that grant funding, that will allow us to add chargers to existing parking lots sooner than the replacement schedule.
Very cool.
And I just wanna stress though too, like Jason said something very important, and that is infrastructure, right? Again, we're working, like Jason said, with Erin and her team on trying to capture some grant funding that will help fund, you know, not only the additional electrical load that we need, but actually getting the charging stations. So I just don't want anybody to think that once you see the fresh new pavement that there's gonna be chargers there. What's gonna be in place is like all the conduit that we need, and then once we're certain that we have the proper electrical capabilities and we can get our hands on the actual chargers that we need, then they'll be going in.
It's exciting. My other question is related to the other roads. The road entering the complex off Telegraph on the south end is pretty bumpy and in need of repair. So is that, I'm sure it's on a plan somewhere. Do you know when you're gonna be fixing that up? I'm always, you know, I want our entrances to look good and not have people pulling into the county going, man, they should fix this road. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know offhand when that one's scheduled. The north end, the whole entrance and the loop, if you've ever been in the loop there, that loop's really bad. But basically from Telegraph Road all the way to where it was stopped a few years ago, that whole section of County Center Drive is scheduled for next year. And we're working with the road commission on that. So we had a meeting with them yesterday, so they'll be bidding that in the fall for a spring construction of next year to get that road done. So you'll see that here too, because that's in the capital plan as well. But yeah, same thing with the south end. It's in the plan, but
And Jason mentioned something that I think is important to know too, like not all of our roads on campus are like 100% like our roads. Some do, like there's a partnership with the road commission, so we do have to work with them on a few of the major roads that run through. But you know, paving is something that we've been wanting to get caught up on for years, and you know, in the last few months, we've brought to you what our capital needs are, right? And so I think once the dust settles on what's gonna happen with the downtown Pontiac, that'll allow us to go back and start looking at, you know, what off of that, you know, $800 million list we want to start tackling and how we're gonna do that. But paving is definitely a higher priority in that plan.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Johnson, followed by Commissioner Weiper.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wasn't gonna ask about EV chargers, but since everyone else did, I figured I should too. Just as we're talking EV stuff, when you say necessary electrical bandwidth, are we talking level 2s everywhere? Or level 1s some places, level 3s some places?
we're currently talking about level 2s.
Okay, cool.
Some of the grants that the Sustainability Office is looking at, I believe, are for level 3s. But for what we're looking at with our parking lots here, it's level 2s.
Sweet. I agree with that idea, so fine, cool. That's it.
That's it? All right, Commissioner Weiper?
Thank you. Can you tell the committee some of the stuff that we had that pre-meeting? Tell them about the issues about how the power is coming in the county, and tell them about the bidding on the concrete or the asphalt.
Yeah,
Those two
Jason can
issues.
probably speak to that, because I know, I believe you had the
Yeah, we had
pre-meeting with Jason.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, the electrical infrastructure, like most of the rest of the campus, right, is fairly old. And we have several feeders that feed separate, sections of the campus. So when we did the electrical study specifically for this building and the executive office building, what we found is we only have capacity to add one dual port charger. So basically one 40 amp breaker. Our goal is to get up to 10% EV charging spots for the whole parking lot. So at the EOB, that would be like 16 chargers. We just don't have the capacity at the building. So our maintenance department right now is working on a campus-wide electrical study, looking at what our current capacity is, what the current infrastructure can support, and then when and if, well not if, but when those feeders are replaced or upgraded, what do we need to increase the electrical capacity up to, you know, when they replace that. So they're also looking at building electrification on changing the building systems from natural gas over to electricity. So they have that study coming, but right now we're very limited on what we can add to the buildings with the way they were designed, you know.
And even then, there's like concerns with our actual power source coming to the campus, right? So there's discussions with the outside entities that supply the power to our campus. But yeah, if you think about it, like we're not, like Jason said, we're not just talking about chargers. Like for instance, we just remodeled the old Pontiac Health Center. It's like our new sheriff's evidence storage center, right? And that building we pulled off of the steam plant, and it has solar panels, but it also, like everything is electrified. So if you think about what we want to achieve by going to full electrification, it's gonna take a lot. And I really, we're not the only ones, right? You know, I think it's really catching on, and everyone is starting to look towards full electrification, and we're not the only ones that are running into these challenges that we have to work through.
There's 6 feeders, right? And then
Exactly.
So we, the county does not purchase the electricity from DTE. It comes through some DTE lines, and the county pays for those lines, basically, I think, you know, like a rent rate, if you will. And then once it comes into our switchgear building, it runs from there to those feeders. So it comes from DTE's substation through one overhead line, and then from there, everything on the campus is maintained and owned by Oakland County and maintained by the operations division.
Campus is split up into 3 sections, and there's A and B feeder that go to one section, C and D feeder that go to another section, E and F feeder that go to another section. And the reason there are 2 is that's the backup, right? We lost power last week, and it was a perfect storm. Like the one feeder was overloaded, and we had a break in it, and then everything had to be put on the other feeder, and it got overloaded, and it went. Generators kicked in for where we had generators, but there's just some places that we don't have enough generators for, so.
This was when it was hot last week.
this is the grid.
Oh, the goodness. Well, anything further from you, Mr. Wong?
And then the asphalt issue, when that wasn't the bidding or nobody even wanna touch it.
Yeah, so a lot of the asphalt companies are busy with road projects. They're very large projects, and our projects in comparison are relatively small. So we actually had to bid this out 3 times. The first time we bid this project was last February. And we ended up, you'll see in here, we're gonna use Frank Rewald and Sons as our construction manager, which is typically not how we pave. Usually we just hire paving contractors and we manage it ourselves. But because of what they do and you know, the vendor pool that they have, we ended up having to go to them. But when we reached out even to all 5 of our CM firms that we have under contract, they're the only ones that would bid it for us. So they're busy. They did get enough bids. They followed our purchasing policies, and they were able to get it on this schedule. It was a little challenging.
There's a lot of infrastructure dollars out there right now, and we're like Jason said, these are not big, this is not where the money's at right now, so we're having a hard time getting bidders.
Right.
Yeah.
So
I mean, this is It's $2 million worth of paving that can't get somebody to.
Seems like a lot of money, but to
Right.
them right now, it's not.
Right. So that's the reality we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Those are all the questions that I saw, and thank you, Mr. Whitehead, for bringing up those other parts. And I don't have an EV. I also don't have a blue placard, so it just seems like, you get pushed further and further and further away from the building. But I'll digress, and one day I will be of the EV community, so then I'll be like, ha ha, you gassers, you can go park way down at the end. But other than that, I think all the questions have been satisfied, so we'll go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Thank you.
Thank you, motion carries. All right, item E, facilities management, land lease for Easter Seals Mork of Michigan. We'll go ahead and entertain a motion to get this recommended to the board.
So moved.
Support.
Moved and supported. And it looks like Paul,
Yes, good morning.
thank you. Paul, introduce your,
Yes, this is Jeff Kamoa. He's executive with Easter Seals.
Yeah.
And he's here just to help with any questions about regarding Easter Seals. So in this particular case, we are constructing a new land lease for the property where the Easter Seals building is now. So Easter Seals has been a great partner, nonprofit for a long time, 65 years, I believe. And just in this case, we wanted to help them with their new building. So in order to do that, we needed to expand the land lease, not by much. We went from 1.57 acres to 1.85 acres. So that extra size will accommodate their new larger building, which they're going from basically from 8,000 to 16,000 square feet. So we don't really want to get into the construction and the building and all that, because this really is the land lease. So first, we need to give them space and a land lease that's long terms. So the current land lease goes till 2026. It was renewed for 15 years. So back in 2011, they renewed that for 15 years. So now we're going to go 40 years plus another 20. So that is pretty consistent with how long land leases are. Usually they're 50 years at least. So we have a 40 and a 20. In this particular case, Easter Seals will be on the property for that long. It's a dollar lease, consistent with what we've done in the past with this particular organization, which provides so much for autism and for handicap. So they're really excited about the new opportunity with a newer building. The location is great because it's right on campus. It has its own road right next to Vibe and right next to what used to be the Boy Scouts, which is now the Sheriff's Patrol Center. And that location will work out great for them. So we're asking for the board to approve this land lease, which you've read through and has all the costs involved with construction for Easter Seal is on them. So we're providing the land, they're building the building, and it's going to be a great partnership. So if there's any questions about the land lease, I'd be happy to answer those.
thank you, Paul. Let me see, no one's identified questions. Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. Just one quick question. I know you mentioned previously the land lease was 15 years. And I know you said now we're going to 40 plus the option for another 20. So I was just wanting to get some clarification on that, just based on the fact that it was 15 before. Was there a reason it was a shorter time frame than the last go around in 2011?
Well, the actual land lease started in 1955, I believe. So it was a long-term lease. Back then it was 40 years. And along the way, it's been continually renewed. So in 2011, I wasn't here, but it was renewed for 15 years to 2026. That's pretty consistent with what I see in the other land leases in the county.
15 you're saying?
Right, and probably because at that time, they knew the building, was older and didn't know particularly what plans. Again, at that time, that probably seemed like a long time, 15 years out, so.
And the main reason for the longer lease at this point is because Easter Seals wants to make a commitment to build a new state-of-the-art, bigger facility, and if they're gonna invest millions of dollars into building a new building, right, of course, they wanna make sure that they're okay on that piece of land for long enough to make that investment worthwhile.
Right, no, understood. I mean, it makes sense to me. I wanted to get some clarification on the 15 versus the 40, that's all.
You're welcome. Anything further on this item? If not, we'll go ahead and prompt the vote.
You have 6 yeas and 0 nays.
Motion carried. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Have a good rest of the day.
You too.
Keep up the good work, Easter Seals. Very important work. That takes us to item F on the agenda, a long-awaited and exciting time here. Board of Commissioners partnership with the Road Commission for Oakland County to assist in the reconstruction and rehabilitation of township subdivision roads. And I'll entertain a motion to recommend and forward to finance. Commissioner Spiz, supported by Commissioner Rahman. And welcome.
Thank
Please
you.
introduce yourself.
Karen Joliet, Oakland County Commissioner. So as you all know and remember, this program was already approved and money appropriated last fall with the budget. So all this resolution does is move the funding from the fund balance to its own line item. So when the Road Commission comes before this committee with its list of projects that are the most dire need, the money can then be transferred to the Road Commission to offset the SADs. So I'm a wealth of knowledge of Public Act 51 and all of its shortcomings. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Well, I appreciate the hard work. We'll start with Commissioner Rahman.
Thank you. So I know we've had some conversations, we've been to Road Commission together, a few weeks ago. I think it's great that we're doing it, but I guess my only question is, in the grand scheme of what's needed, does this really do anything? Because I think the numbers they quoted us were per mile, it's $1 million or something to
Correct.
to resurface
Correct.
and everything. So if we're talking multiple townships who are all clearly in dire need,
Correct.
I mean, this is not even a drop in the bucket, right? This is like maybe 1/10 of a drop in a huge bucket.
Yep.
So I guess in the grand scheme of things, I'm happy to approve it, but I don't really know what we're accomplishing.
So, roads, fix the roads. I would like more, but this is all I could get funded for right now for 3 years. But I think that there, as the rest of the state, the county infrastructure has gone and been ignored and neglected. And there's been, there needs to be a re-education. A lot of residents are not familiar with the SAD process and how do we get the roads fixed? And they're all waiting to see when they're gonna get fixed. So this was really to jumpstart people to like an education campaign and to motivate them to start the process. It's a long process. It's at least 6 months. You gotta go door to door twice, get 51% of signatures. It's a lot. So yes, it's a drop in the bucket, but it's something to jumpstart and to get the rest of the residents within Oakland County townships to see that this is what needs to be done. This is how you do it.
And this would be equitably divided between all of the townships then? or how
So,
is-
no, the only people that are eligible would be those that have an SAD. So the SAD, and we, the Road Commission, we talked about how you do that. So it's really on the residents to start the process. You have to meet with the Road Commission. They go over the whole system. And then it's usually 4 to 5 neighbors that go door to door to get that 51% of signatures to start the investigation. Then they go back to the Road Commission and the Road Commission says, all right, yeah, we have enough to do an engineering study. They look at the road and they say, okay, this is how much it's gonna cost per household. And it's based on linear footage. It's not equal per household. And then each resident you have to go back and get another 50% of signatures to acknowledge what you're going to be paying over a 10-year period assessed at 6%. And that stays with the home, or no, it stays with the homeowner. So if they sell the house 2 years after the road is done, that becomes a lien, and the owners have to pay that off before they move. So it's a big education and commitment process, yeah.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Commissioner Rahman. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, yeah, I guess just to continue, like, it's 2 million in total, 250,000 or 25% maximum for each. So I'm thinking like 4 townships, because it's pretty easy to expire that $250,000.
So the projects will be picked by the road commission based on, which we're still, I think we kind of have ironing out, a metric based on those roads that are in the worst shape. So the most cost, like how far do you have to go down? And you have to do culverts and ditches and drainage. And then based on the density of people per road. So the money will go furthest per resident. So it could be 4, it could be 10. I mean, it's based on per project.
Okay.
So this was kind of, it was kind of an education for me too, for them showing me past projects and, yeah, how that works, yes.
And piggybacking a little bit on Commissioner Johnson, that there was a discussion that you had yesterday, of course, I'm so glad about it, with Commissioner Woodward, just to make sure all boxes were checked. And it sounds like the board will appropriate the funds now to a non-departmental line item budget. And then once the projects are selected by the road commission, to your point, and recommended to the board to be included in the program, a separate resolution board action report at a later date would be presented to this committee with approval by the full board. So it's very similar to Tri-Party and LRIP, and it was, really an important negotiation spoke in the wheel. So I just want to make sure that we don't feel that we are obfuscating. I don't get to use that word very often, so I'm going to throw it out there. Our responsibility. So, but if there are any other questions, Commissioner Markham.
Yes, thank you. I just want to go on record saying I've been against this from the very beginning from a philosophical point of view, because other areas of the county where we have millages to pay for our local road improvements, those folks are essentially subsidizing the townships this way. But I'm really happy to hear that this requires an SAD, which is very similar to having a millage. I mean, they're being assessed to pay for this themselves, basically, with some help from us, which is the way the other programs kind of work, but not in the subdivisions. So I don't really like it that we're moving into this area of supporting township subdivisions for that reason, but I like the way it's set up, and I'm gonna vote in support of it, because you do mitigate the questions that I had about everybody else subsidizing those subdivisions. So I'm glad to hear that you have to have an SAD before you can get a project funded as part of this. And that resolves a lot of my concern. So I will be in support.
Great, thank you. And again, townships are at the mercy of Public Act 51.
Right.
To be able to assess the millage, so.
Right.
Hopefully somebody at the state will look at that.
Yeah. Well, I don't see any other hands raised, any thoughts or ponderances. Royal Township is not involved in this. They were late kind of even thinking about it, and just like was said about the SAD, gonna take a lot more educating and sharing of best practices. So we look forward to possibly being involved in this for the next time around, if that's a thing. Commissioner Johnson?
If I may, if Royal Township is out, do we have a list of who is in? Just like literally names?
The road commission has a potential. They're all still trying to, they're in the second phase of, so you can call the road commission, that's kind of private information, but I'm sure they'll share it with you.
Okay.
Of the projects that they call potential construction, because they're still trying to complete the second round of signatures. Those people have 90 days once they get the petition sheets to complete those.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great question. All right, well,
Commissioner Joliet, this is Michael with the DOC staff, and Commissioner Johnson, I can certainly send over that list to you from the Road Commission. As Commissioner Joliet had said, not necessarily private, but it is still in the works, and so they don't want to sound the alarms to any residents that may still be going through the process of getting their signatures in saying that the list is final or anything like that. But I certainly can share that with you to give you an idea of the projects that would qualify for 2024 construction.
Thanks, Mike, I'd really appreciate that.
and I might have missed it, Mike, would you share that with
Everybody.
Connie and she could disseminate it out to the committee?
Yes, certainly.
Thank you. All right, well, let us go ahead and prompt the vote, and this is recommend to finance.
I would just like to say, you know, I appreciate the work that you have done, Commissioner, to solve a problem that existed where you live and in your district that had not been solved before. And really working the system to try to find a way that we all can support it. And I think that shows really dedication to the job, and I appreciate that you take this job seriously like that and have brought something that didn't exist before. So, congratulations.
Thank you.
Right, I agree. It was very very much of a bipartisan approach, and we felt strongly that it was important for you to get up here to be able to at least speak to it, just to show you that, you know, we care about our constituents across the aisle, and we want that to go forward in the townships that you represent, and just remind them that we care.
Thank you.
Other than that, I think that's all. I also want to shout out Michael Andrews too, who's quietly been helping row the boat to make this thing float. So shout out to you, Mike. Both Mikes, yes.
Yeah, and if this works out, that we can maybe address expanding it or showcasing it.
Sure.
Right, because it's kind of unique.
Yes.
All right, well, that motion carried unanimously. So
All right.
on to finance. Thank you. And with that, we are at our second and final public comment for this committee here today. And I don't see anyone here from the public to address this committee, so we'll move on to item 11. Is there any other business to come before EDI today? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting.